This is Michael Labers. I'm here with Wilfred Labiosa. He is the Executive Director of Waves Ahead in Puerto Rico. Wilfred, good to talk to you again. It's been a long time since we've spoken, so I wanted to take a chance to check in with you and see what's going on in Puerto Rico. So to start off, just tell us about Waves Ahead and what you do in Puerto Rico and the clients you serve. So give us an overview of Waves Ahead to start off.
Sure. And first of all, thank you so much for your invitation. I really appreciate it. And Waves Ahead is the organization in Puerto Rico that works and focuses on working with LGBT older adults. We manage the local chapter of SAGE. And in Waves Ahead, besides SAGE, we also have the rebuilding efforts that is called Reconstruye Q, which you were part of, volunteering to rebuild homes after the hurricane of 2017, Irma and Maria. And we also provided aid and provide aid after and during the earthquakes. We haven't stopped shaking, so we still provide aid to those individuals being impacted by the earthquakes. And now with COVID, we are also providing assistance through Reconstruye Q. And then our third project, which is our micro business and micro business lending, is called Descúbrete. And that is a program that focuses on women-led households, LGBT, and older adults. And those programs run through our community centers that are in San Juan, Cabo Rojo, and we're going to be opening soon other two around the island. And since COVID, we have been virtual. So this is our daily way of living through all of these platforms, providing services and giving that connectivity to the individuals. We also provide, because of the type of service that we provide in the aid, we provide using our precautions. We have been in the street providing food and aid to those individuals impacted by COVID and the economy.
And how many clients would you say Waves Ahead serves currently, given what's going on with COVID?
Sure. So on an ongoing basis, we have about 242 individuals, give or take some numbers, that are routinely with us. But during the crisis of the earthquakes and now COVID, we have provided since January over 5,000 individuals with food, with clothing, with tents, with mattresses, you name it, water filters. So although they may not be directly older LGBT people, but they might be older, they might be LGBT, they might be allies to the community, and they are seeking help. So we help anyone who feels comfortable being provided the help from us.
And you mentioned when we started, Wilfred, Reconstruye Q, which, as you mentioned, I took part in that project about 2.5 years ago. And for folks who may know, this was after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, and we're coming up on the 3rd anniversary of the storm in September.
Time flies.
Yeah, it's really something. So talk about Reconstruye Q and how many houses we rebuilt and what's the need in Puerto Rico almost 3 years after Maria.
Well, let me begin with that last question. People are still living under blue tarps. Blue tarps are tarps that are colored blue that some of them were provided by the government and other ones were bought in hardware stores. The tarps cover the roofs of a lot of the houses and businesses that the roof flew away with the hurricanes of almost 3 years ago. And people might be listening to me and saying, Wilfred, it's 3 years ago. Move on. No, we cannot move on because we're still dealing with the repercussions, the impact of these hurricanes had in people all across the island. So Reconstruye Q was developed with us, with people from the diaspora of the United States that are Puerto Rican and or LGBT, in order to bring aid directly to those most impacted and those who have been forgotten by the central government and by the federal government. We have been providing and rebuilding homes of those that were not approved by FEMA or the local government. And so we're talking here, and I think you have done a lot of pieces, written pieces about Ricky, one of our families. At the time that you were here last year was the last time you came after the hurricane. Now I can happily report that we are in our 21st home. So when you came, we were only about 8 or 9
when I was
after
there,
the hurricane.
the power wasn't even back up and running. I remember being on Vieques with you, and there were still telephone poles literally lying across the road.
Yeah, but you came last year. I want to say 2019. Did you come here?
2018, I think, was the last.
Well, that was the last time. Wow, it has been a while. Time flies.
Yeah. So how are things now compared to 2 years ago?
Well, well, the happy thing is that we are at the 21st home, so we're still rebuilding homes, and we just got funding from the Global Giving people to develop 2 more homes. So we are happy to say that. At the same time, it's very sad that I'm still dealing with things after the hurricane, when we have a whole list of people now impacted by the earthquakes that we need to help and give aid.
And these are the earthquakes that were on the southern coast of the island earlier this year.
Yeah, but now the damage has been going out of those municipalities, and we have found damages all the way to in the south coast, not just in the southwest.
Okay.
And earthquakes still occur. Last week we had 2 that shook so they might not be as heavy, as high, but they still occur. About water, we have water on and off. We had a drought, and now we don't have a drought. Electricity was put with Band-Aids, so it fails anytime now. But millions was spent on it, billions. A lot of the government have, and those companies, you all heard about Whitefish. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are more industries that have stolen money, saying that they're doing something and they just don't do it. So we're still dealing with, the leftover damages of Maria and Irma. More Maria than Irma.
Yeah.
But.
And how has COVID impacted these recovery efforts, not only from Maria, but more recently the earthquake, and then you had Isaias just a couple of weeks ago as well, which I understand knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of people in Puerto Rico. So how is COVID impacting all of this recovery?
To
be happening.
We and other nonprofit organizations, which I want to make clear that the nonprofit organizations like Waves Ahead, who focus in other segments of the community, are doing the work for the government, the central government. We are the ones who are doing the impact. Big foundations like the Ricky Martin Foundation is doing a lot of work, but also we have Waves Ahead, and we have other projects in the whole gamma of nonprofit organizations who are really doing the impact, who are really doing the work that the central government is charging millions of dollars to the US government and US entities, and they're just putting it in their pockets. Right now, the FBI is investigating a lot of these people who have stolen money from education, from building, from electricity. They're all coming along. It's like dominoes. They're falling one after another, but it's just taking time for the investigation to occur. But COVID really has impacted our work because we cannot have that contact, one-to-one contact. I also want to make clear that a lot of the individuals that were impacted by the earthquake in the Southwest towns, there are about 8 towns there, they were pushed to hotels, to motels, to out of the view. So when the US government came here in February, and then again in June, there were no shelters specifically because of the earthquakes, because everybody was out of sight, out of view, so we don't have a problem. All those vouchers are now expiring, so all of those people are going back on the street. And now the governor, she said, oh, we're going to give houses 100 per month or something like that number that she hasn't even reached. I want to say maybe 10% of that. And she said that in April, and she still hasn't done that. So COVID has really impacted the way that we do work. And a lot of these individuals don't have internet access. They don't have the technology that we assume that everybody has. They don't have smartphones. They have the flip phones. Those flip phones that we used to have.
Yeah,
all technology.
Yeah.
That are not compatible with all of these systems. And so we have needed not only to use phones, you know, to call them, to keep in touch, but really people are becoming more and more anxious. They're more and more depressed, and one thing after another. And so we are also doing an educational campaign about suicide prevention among older adults and also with LGBT people. I have to thank the New York City office of the Department of Aging and New York City State chapter, because they have been instrumental in providing us the support needed in order to develop that campaign all across the island. Because right now we cannot do it in papers, you know, it has to be digital, billboards, phones, you know, send messages, radio spots. So it has been an educational campaign that continues going. It's called Exprésate, express yourself. And we have seen so many messages that break our heart, because there are a lot of people living in the outskirts of towns that are just so isolated, and that they really need support, and they need someone to listen to. Some of these individuals have not come out of the closet, and we are the first person that they reach out saying, I've been feeling lonely, I have been feeling neglected, not only for being older, but I haven't come out of the closet. So I have those two, and my son and daughter think I am gay, and so they push me aside. So it's very sad stories that we hear every day through that campaign.
I know that we spoke, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the pandemic really started to shut things down. And I know that you had talked with me, Wilfred, about a lot of your clients, you know, you talked about just lacking access to technology, but and things like that. But there was also a real concern about just being able to access food and medication, especially for those folks who may not live in places like San Juan or Ponce or Fajardo, places that are much more isolated on the island. Is that still a concern with those folks who might be more isolated as we're months into the pandemic, or has that alleviated itself a little bit?
No, unfortunately, it hasn't been alleviated. Now there are more companies leaving Puerto Rico because of the economy. They're closing their doors. A lot of businesses closing their doors, limiting hours. So even companies that are major companies, I don't want to advertise them, but they're big companies, like whatever you assume, yes, that big chain are limiting hours of employment because they're not opening as many hours per day. They don't have that many shifts per day. And because they are limiting the amount of people that can go inside a place, we are at the rule is 50% capacity you can be at. So that means less employees, means less hours of employment. And so more people are losing their jobs, losing benefits. And so we're providing food. We're working with other organizations here who are providing food every day, and even boxes of food so that you can cook at your home. That's been an issue. And also the issue about masks, about hygiene items, they're expensive. And if people don't have enough food to buy them, to purchase them, they may choose to buy food and milk and then a mask or, you know, hygiene products. You need to balance it out. And if you're just starving, you're going to choose food, not a mask. And so we are providing masks, we're providing hygiene items, but we don't know everybody who needs them. We know our clients, our pool of individuals that we have access to, but I know there has to be more and more people in the outskirts thinking about this. So that's why we in Exprésate, although it's about talking and expressing yourself, every time they call us or they text us or they reach out to us, we first say, hey, do you have food? Hey, do you need something? And we get it to them by mail or bring a messenger. We send them everywhere around the island. Although we only have 2 centers in Cabo Rojo, which is in the southwest, and San Juan, we really try to outreach anyone that reaches out to us. And also we have a weekly radio show in AM radio, which is heard in the mountainside and in everywhere around the island. So we also outreach during the radio show, talking about the issues that are impacting us, so they don't feel alone and that they don't feel that they're neglected. By the government, we are all neglected. By the central government, we're all neglected, even me. But other people.
That's my next question in a second. But go ahead. Go ahead.
But COVID really has brought us together through technology and through the phones. all of our therapists and clinical social workers are calling all of our clients every day. And I know SAGE in the United States is doing that every day as well, and all the affiliates. Many organizations are doing that here locally, calling people every day, because that phone call can save a life.
Mm-hmm.
That phone call can provide food. And we only have very few in political office that are supportive of the work with LGBT people. And that is sad. You know, all of these politicians are running for office and they don't care about our elders. They don't care about our LGBT people. We do, and we will continue to do so.
Who are the folks in Puerto Rico in terms of elected officials that actively support the LGBTQ community, from your perspective?
From my perspective, very good. Not the organization. I'm going to have that disclosure. Let's write it and type it in.
From the perspective of Wilfred as a person in Puerto Rico.
As an individual living in Puerto Rico and voter. You know, and I was saying this to you, and I mention it in my radio show every week. We need to learn about our candidates. We need to really make sure that even though there might be from a progressive and platform as a party, you know, as a political party institution, we need to find out what they have been doing or what they have been speaking about older benefits for older adults, for LGBT people, for those living with HIV and AIDS, for those living with diabetes. And locally, we have very few candidates running for Senate, running for representative, and even running for government and for a governor. From all the governors, the one that is very progressive, and I know you have interviewed her before, is the current mayor of San Juan, Carmen Yulín Cruz. Carmen Yulín Cruz is the only one in running for governor from the two major parties. The other parties that are newer, like Victoria Ciudadana, they are very progressive in their platforms. The one who's running for Senate, Ana Irma Lacen, who right now is an advocate and a teacher at the School of Law for the Inter-American University. She's very progressive. She's part of the community, from the LGBT community. And I'm not mentioning her in regards of who is running for governor, but from the governor position, the highest rated one, if we would use that scale that is out and about there from the HRC, I think, puts it out. I think she would get a lot of the percentage higher bracket.
This would be Yulín. Yulín. Okay.
And then there's some running for Senate and representatives that are very progressive, who are part of the LGBT community, who have spoken. Another one is the daughter of Ada and Yvonne, who were the ones in the lawsuit for equal marriage. Their daughter, Ada, is running for Senate. She's very progressive. She grew up with two moms, and she's really a great gal, and she's running for office. There's another one called Claribel. Claribel is right now a city councilor for San Juan, and she's very progressive as well in her mentality. She's a great ally. And then we have, Marcos Rigau, who is the president of the city council for San Juan, who's very progressive as well. So we have very few people. I can go on and on with more names, but you know, for our listeners and the ones who are viewing, they may not be living in Puerto Rico, so they may not know it. But what I say to you in the United States and here in Puerto Rico is learn about them, Google them. You know, when you're bored, don't have nothing to do, just Google their name. I even say Google Kamala Harris. Google anyone, Biden. You know, if you Google Trump, you'll see all the homophobia that is there, transphobia that he has. So that's easy Google search. But the other ones, they might take few more pages to go down the road to learn about them.
And you mentioned the government failing everybody in Puerto Rico. So I wanted to ask you, Wilfred, talk about the current governor, Wanda Vázquez, and what she's been doing or what she has not been doing since she took office after Ricardo Rosselló resigned just about a year ago. What's your take on the current governor?
Well, I wish I could use language to describe her, but I can't, and I will, and I won't because I'm professional. And but off the call, you and I can share more eloquent language. but that gives you just my answer
I
to
see where
you.
you're going.
Yeah, it's incredible. As a politician, I understand that sometimes you promise and you cannot meet your promise because you have other individuals that impede you from it. Um, but you cannot be a politician that only runs because the money you will get to run your campaign. Yes, that would be part of your platform,
Mm-hmm.
but you cannot do your acting as governor and you be governor without being a governor for all. And that is the issue. She promises many things that sound amazing, but she hasn't accomplished
Give us
not even 5% or 8%.
give us an example of
An
what you
example, she went a few months ago saying that everybody in the southwest part of the island, that she was going to be giving at least, I'm messing out the number, but it's about 70 to 80 homes with titles to people per month, free, the titles of the home, so they could move to another area. She did one ceremony with 30 homes or 40 homes, and that was it. And then that was no more about it. So it just went away. And I think people here have selective amnesia or just have some amnesia. The people who are supporting her, she hasn't done anything for the older people, from the veterans, for LGBT people, for women-led households. She's signing into law the civil code that it goes into place in November, controlling the woman's body, the woman's right to choose. What kind of government are we living in? What kind of country are we living in when a woman is instituting ways that the court will dictate to you as a woman if you can have an abortion or not? One thing is religious. I can understand that you have religious rights and you have religious thoughts that impede you from having an abortion, and instead you give it for adoption, etc. I can understand that, but that is you choose. Now women cannot choose in Puerto Rico starting in November. And then she said there were going to be public hearings about it. She said that the public hearings were held, yes, during COVID. So do you know how many people were in that? None, because it was during the beginning part of the COVID. We were all afraid. We had a curfew that we needed to be in place, and no one went to those. And then she said, oh, well, send in your letters. How many people will send in a letter? Yes, she received some. She received some, but it wasn't done electronically, so people could not do it electronically. Then the electronic system collapsed. So we have one thing after another. Then she said, we're going to control gasoline prices. Yeah, control for a week or two, and then skyrocket now. We're going to control prices of food so people who are losing their job can buy food. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my clients, my patients, and he was saying, Wilfred, I went to this store, which is a chain store, which is in the United States, to purchase, and I don't remember paying for a packet of ham $3. I used to pay $1.50, and now it doubled up. Simple things like that add up, and people cannot afford that ham. They cannot afford that cheese. And people might say, oh, well, you're getting a lot of benefits. No, there was today in the news, local news, saying that all of these millions of dollars received for the elections are still in the bank. They're not spending it. And then they took from COVID money to do a plebiscite in November's election, which still hasn't occurred. They took the COVID money to develop those things for that plebiscite that the US government just said, we're not going to even abide by it. So
this is the vote on statehood. Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about? Okay.
Yeah. It hasn't been totally defined, that plebiscite, so that's why I didn't want to give all the details, but that's in a nutshell what it is for.
I'm curious to know, Wilfred, who actually supports the current governor and specifically her party, which is pro-statehood? Who are the folks who actually support her? If you can shed some light.
The very conservative religious groups are supporting her.
Okay.
Her account, she has someone who's against her in the preliminary elections for governor from her own party. And the religious people are going with her, and then all the other political officers and all the people in the community are going with him. You know, it's just the conservative people.
Gotcha. Talk about, I want to ask you a few other questions, just what's been in the news in Puerto Rico recently. What happened on Sunday with the primary elections? It was an unmitigated disaster. Any insight as to what actually happened and why that went the way that it went?
It's another incompetency of this governor. You know, she is the governor, and this is supposedly an independent commission for elections. It is different. It's separate. The director of it is from the Progressive Party, which is a pro-statehood party. He just didn't have incompetency. He just didn't send to print on time all the ballots. And this preliminary election, primary election, was supposed to held back in June. So when it was postponed in April, was postponed from June to August. Come on, we have a lot of months here. It's like, yes, one ballot needed approval from the House of Representatives locally, and that wasn't approved, but it was on one ballot, so you could start printing all the other ones and just that ballot. You know, it is the inefficiency, and what me personally, I'm saying this. I'm just saying that they're putting people in those positions that don't have the experience, don't even know how to run. You know, he was a judge. Okay, a judge. What is your experience running a department?
This is the head of the election.
Of the commission, of the
commission.
electoral. What experience do you have? You know, you are a judge. Okay, you know about the law. Great. But what does have to translate with management, with how to do a big thing like this? You know, you're not going to say that you have the experience. No. And there were a lot of people underneath him that had the experience, who have been there for years, and they didn't even consider them for that position. So you bring someone from the outside, plug them in, but then the people who have been there 20 and 30 years, you cannot promote them. You cannot move them up within. Come on. So that's one of...
Was there, I've heard there were allegations of fraud as well. Is that what happened?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I, you know, where I went to vote, I was able to vote very easily.
And you're in
I'm in San Juan. I live in San Juan.
Okay.
And so I was able to vote very easily. I didn't even know about all this problem until I arrived home, and I was doing some work, so I wasn't connected to any of the social media or anything. And then in the afternoon, I connected and I said, oh my God, because where I voted, you could not see any of these trouble happening. It was all happening outside of the San Juan area, which is, I don't know. And most probably we'll never know the truth, the whole truth. We will never know.
The
Supreme Court is right now has a lot of plaintiffs putting to see if they hold it, those areas that were never opened, we're going to be opening and voting on Sunday. But now I heard, before going into this platform with you, it may not happen on Sunday. So they're just figuring it out. So we will know hopefully soon. But this commissioner is saying that we are not ready for Sunday. How can you not be ready for Sunday when you are supposed to be ready and you have all the ballots already printed? So they're all there. So how can you not? We'll see, sitting on your butt, trying to wait till the birds drop off ideas, you know, I don't know.
Unbelievable. I wanted to ask you about this as well. Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez of New York last week asked the Federal Communications Commission to investigate La Comay for their homophobic and xenophobic comments. And there were calls to boycott the show in June after the host insulted Ana Irma Rivera Lassen, who was running for the Senate. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a long time coming. You know, Cobo Santa Rosa, which is the puppeteer of that show, if you ever see it online, is a big female puppet
Yeah.
sitting on a chair, and he's the one behind it, the puppeteer.
Mm-hmm.
He has a long time coming. You know, he was taken out of the waves of the mainstream channels here a few years ago because of homophobia and transphobia and xenophobia, and now he's back in this other channel. It's not as popular channel, but it is. It's among the top 5, I want to say. Um, I I don't watch TV. I try to avoid TV locally. I only get my news from the radio, newspaper, or internet, because I think a lot of the shows that we see here in Puerto Rico, and even in the States, when I lived in the States, it was the same thing. We have a lot of homophobia. We have a lot of racist jokes. We have a lot of racist comedy. We have a lot of xenophobia and homophobia and transphobia. So really, she needs to go. The puppet and the concept has to go. And I am so glad that media took this to the federal level, because they are consuming ways to promote their xenophobia and it's interesting. A quick parenthesis about Como Santa Rosa. He always has the governor in there from the Progressive Party. So the Progressive Party, even the one who resigns, Rosselló, and even this new one, even on the predecessors, go to the show. Because that show is being watched by conservative, ultra-conservative, fundamentalist, and religious people who love that blank type of show. So it is horrible, and a lot of people in the LGBT community understand that. You know, I know for a fact that some of the advertisers pulled out, but
Yeah.
some of the other advertisers are still with it because they have a contract with the United States, because this station is also watched. It can be watched in Florida.
I believe
So
yeah, the parent company is based in
so
yeah.
and they broadcast in Florida.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the advertisers are not Puerto Rican based. They're US based, and that's why they stay. But a lot of the local ones are out.
Is the boycott going to succeed? I know that it was taken off the air a few years ago on another station, but now it's back on, I believe it's WAPA in Puerto Rico.
No, it's in Mega. In Mega TV. It's not in WAPA.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah. Is it going to be taken off of Mega with this boycott? Do you think the boycott will succeed?
I don't know. I hope so. You know, it would be interesting to monitor what comes out of that lawsuit, you know, with media. It'll be very interesting to see.
And she just sent the letter last week, so I'm not sure if the FCC is responsible yet, but we'll certainly.
And now we here in Puerto Rico, and I'm talking about that amnesia, selective amnesia, you know, because we're talking about primaries now, they forget about that. So we moved on from crisis, and so now we move into another crisis.
One other thing I wanted to quickly ask you about as well, Wilfred, is the situation with Pedro Julio Serrano. He was arrested a few weeks ago, as you know. He's been released on bail. There's some, from what I understand, there's some real questions about the authenticity of the complaint that was brought against him. Do you have any comment on that situation?
No, I personally, Wilfred Labiosa, support him. I think the case, there are a lot of protocols in place by the police department, by the judiciary department, that needs to be followed when working with an LGBT individual. There's a lot of protocols. And even if any situation occurs about domestic violence, or about an altercation, or about any of these things of abuse, physical, mental, whatever it is, there's protocols on how you handle situation with the two males or two females. And none of those protocols were followed in this case. Pedro Julio, you know, people are against him, and I understand that. And so during the time of his arrest, this is my thought, he was gaining a lot of ground against Como Santa Rosa and La Comay. And I think this is all about it, because the day of his arrest, Como Santa Rosa had people talking against Pedro Julio, and speaking garbage about Pedro Julio, of people he might have dated, he may not have dated, but funds from Cobo Santa Rosa to do these interviews from Florida, from outside in the States, and so forth. You know, it is ridiculous. And so because of the power that he has and you know, Cobo Santa Rosa has, he could maneuver whatever he can maneuver. And I think it's because also Pedro Julio Serrano was gaining a lot of ground in a lot of the issues that are impacting LGBT people. He's one of very few activists that are here in the island really working in your face about the issues with solid information. And I go back to the solid information. We sometimes vote, we sometimes support people in our own community or even in communities of color that don't know information, that just for being of color, you're supportive of them, that just because you're a gay person or a lesbian person, you support them. No, you need to learn, you need to read. If you spend so much time with garbage TV or with garbage entertainment, also take time to learn about the actual issues that are impacting us as a community and as a whole, as a society. And I think in Pedro Julio's case, the police didn't follow protocols. They're treating him as a second-class citizen. They're really controlling how he's getting a fair trial. Still till today, he hasn't had a trial to come into clear. And what happened to you're guilty until proven guilty? That supposedly is in the democracy that we live in. What happens to that? So are we living in a type of government that is just one-way street, fundamentalists who control everything? Well, we know the answer to that question that I'm just imposing. You know, in the United States, you can see how, you know, the president and all of his colleagues are controlling a lot, and it's happening here too. Our governor is a Trump supporter. Our resident commissioner is a Republican Trump supporter. Most of the people in the judiciary realm here in Puerto Rico have come out saying that they support Trump, that they are Republicans. So how can you get a fair trial being an LGBT person, being an outspoken person on something that you may not have done? So,
is there anything to the theory then that Santa Rosa might have set him up?
I believe so.
You do? Okay.
I believe so.
And
I believe also that because he worked because he was suspended from work for the city of San Juan, and he leads the only transgender clinic that has to do about it too, you know.
So he works with Yulin's administration also. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it sounds like there's all sorts of political considerations perhaps at play.
I support him fully. I know that I hope and I always pray that everything comes out in the open, the truth, and that the truth will set you free. And I know it will come out. He will come out okay. One of the things, Michael, you know Puerto Rico because you have been here so many times. And those who haven't been to Puerto Rico, come after the COVID is done and after we reopen our doors. It's a beautiful island. Besides what we're talking about.
Yeah, I hope to come back soon too.
Yeah, you will. But here in Puerto Rico, we are very few LGBT leaders doing the work that no one wants to do. And so we are open to criticism every day, and it's okay. The centers that I lead, my point of view is that I try to balance everything that we do, but when you start hitting us with bad, I don't know how to say it, but just with bad every day, you know, we're human too, and it hurts us too. And so we continue the work, you know, we take some time off, some days off, and we clean ourselves up, we dress up ourselves, and we hit the streets again. You know, recently, one of our transgender sisters had an awful experience registering to get her registration card. And her name is Joanna Cifredo. And so she's a transgender lady who moved back home to Puerto Rico. And she decided to go to register like any citizen here with appropriate paperwork. And she got so hampered on about, you know, they would continue saying to her, he, that pronoun, and saying he, and she would correct them all the time, to the point that I applaud her. You know, she's being a leader now, and she continues being a leader and fighting for equality about voting. The vote, you know, when you go to vote in the States here or anywhere in the world that you go to vote, you're not a religion, you're not a sexual orientation, you're not a gender identity, you're just a human who has the right to a vote. And that in that place, when you go to vote, you don't pick a purple marker, you don't pick a yellow marker, you don't pick a blue, you use a black marker, or you just press the button on the machine, and it's equal for all. So she wanted that right, and she deserves that right, because it is our right. And so the lawsuit was placed a few years ago for the electoral commissioner to allow transgender people to change their all of their information, as long as they bring the appropriate documents.
Mm-hmm.
And now we went backwards. So like that, I say that we, the leaders in the LGBT community here, and all those people who get educated by all of us, you know, it's hard work. And in Puerto Rico, more, you know, it's just hard work. And the Dominican Republic, and I know we're talking about Puerto Rico, but in the Dominican Republic, they're having a lot of issues as well. Political, access to food. You know, they're our sister country next door, in a sense. So we, Waves Ahead, are starting to send them funds to be able to feed the LGBT, older adults and LGBT people. They're being ostracized by people. And because it's Dominican Republic, they're not getting the press or the access to news that Puerto Rico gets, you know, like this opportunity and other opportunities of Puerto Rico being in the news. And the Dominican Republic is being forgotten, and our brothers and sisters in the LGBT community need our help as well. So we are continuing sending them funds. We, this past week, sent them a second time funds to be able to help them, because people are there starving as well. And they need our help. They need our help.
Keep us posted on that for sure. And I've had some experience reporting in Santo Domingo, as you may know. So we'll definitely continue to.
Yeah, I can connect you with a person, because she would like this exposure to talk about the issues who are political, just like in Puerto Rico. There's fraud, like in Puerto Rico, and there's lack of food, economy, and the COVID is just rampant.
Very
COVID there is rampant.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, you reminded me of something when we were talking a couple of minutes ago. There's been a spate of anti-LGBTQ violence and murders in Puerto Rico over the last maybe year and a half or so that's received a lot of attention. Most notably, there were 2 trans women who were killed in Macau in April, I believe, and they were burned in a car. Can you talk about just, you know, what's the latest on that situation, and has that been adequately addressed by the central government and by the feds? And no, you're shaking your head.
The only one was a transgender man who was killed inside a prison by one of his colleagues, and of course, because it was a prison, they found the guilty party. If it is in a prison, that was solved, but the rest of the crimes, unsolved.
Okay. So that's still not being addressed adequately from where you sit in San Juan.
And I know we have a committee here that is for equality. It's called CABE, C-A-B-E. And we once a month post, you know, where the cases are at. Okay. I don't have any news for you. Sorry.
News. Okay. And then to wrap it up, Wilfred, I'm so grateful we had a chance to catch up. It's been way too long, and Puerto Rico is such an important story for us to know about here in the mainland. So, so with that said, what does the future hold for Puerto Rico LGBTQ people on the island? Your organization, kind of give me the pie in the sky view of things moving forward with all of these issues that we all are still confronting on that beautiful, wonderful island that you have that I need to come to soon. But So go ahead.
I can tell you is that I want to thank the people in the diaspora, LGBT and Puerto Ricans, who continue supporting our work, because without that support, we cannot do our work here locally, which is so hard. Waves Ahead will continue ahead. We are starting a new chapter of Reconstruye Q, rebuilding homes of those impacted and not approved by the earthquakes. So we're going to start doing homes hopefully soon. We are developing 2 more community centers around the island, so people have access to a community center. We are expanding our micro business Descubrete program. We are expanding our Exprésate program, and we are developing a housing assistance program for LGBT elders who need a space to call home, and we're developing that. And once again, this is all because of thank you to foundations like Gamma Mu Foundation, I want to say, Wild Geese Foundation, Intersections International. There's so many, Power On, Centerlink, SAGE, the New York City Aging Department, and individuals, you know, like yourself, like many other individuals who pick up the phone, and when they hear news about Puerto Rico, they just call me and they say, hey, I'm going to do this for you, and distribute it. And everybody knows that every single aid that comes to Puerto Rico goes to our people. It brings tears to my eyes because it is only because of the US we can do our work.
We'll continue to keep us posted on what's going on. Wilfred Labiosa, Executive Director of Waves Ahead, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, and for people to visit I just had a note, I forgot.
Yeah,
for people to look in not only our website of wavesahead.org, but also our Facebook pages. We're posting new things, and we're posting new activities. And because all of our services are online, people from the US who come and go are participating of it. And I invite for yoga and meditation, music therapy. And we have our colleague, Lisbeth Melendez, who lives in DC, has a session with us every Tuesday from 1 to 2, talking about spirituality and faith in the LGBT community. So you can join in. They're free, and they're available in the platform, and they're bilingual. So
even better. Well, Wilfred, thank you,
Michael.
Thank you so much, and keep us posted on Puerto Rico.
Thank you very much.